Welcome to our class, and today I want us to be able to discuss about the mean, the variance, the standard deviation, and also the coefficient of variation. These kind of particular questions, they are under the topic of measures of dispersion. And the data that we have been given there is a grouped data, and let us go straight away and start with the mean. How do we calculate the mean of a grouped data? For us to be able to calculate the mean of a grouped data, this is the kind of particular formula that we are going to use. So mean of grouped data, and remember the mean can be denoted by x bar. So that kind of particular x bar means the mean is going to be given by summation of fx divided by summation of f. So that's how we calculate the mean of grouped data, in the sense that f in this case is the frequency. This is the frequency, that is our f, and the x in this kind of particular case is actually the midpoint. So that's how we get the mean of grouped data. That's the formula that we basically use in calculating the mean of the grouped data. So we are going to be able to discuss about again the variance, how to calculate the variance, and also the standard deviation. I'm going to give you the formula. Maybe let me give you the formula of the variance. For us to be able to calculate the variance, then this is the formula that we are actually supposed to use. It's going to be summation of x minus x bar squared multiplied by f divided by summation of f. So that's how we calculate the variance. It's going to be summation of x minus x bar squared multiplied by the frequency and then divided by or over summation of f. And in that case again, f is going to be the frequency, this kind of particular frequency. X bar is going to be the mean. So the answer that we are actually going to get here, that is our x bar. X bar will be that mean. And x is actually going to remain to be the midpoint, that kind of particular midpoint. So that's how we calculate the variance. So variance is going to be the summation of x minus x bar squared multiplied by the frequency and then divided by summation of f. So that's how we can be able to calculate the variance. So the next thing that we need to be able to know how to calculate is what we call the standard deviation of this grouped data. How can we be able to calculate the standard deviation of this grouped data? So standard deviation is going to be given by summation of x minus x bar squared multiplied by f divided by summation of f, and everything should be under square root. So that's how you get the standard deviation. So what if you can be able to relate the two formulas, you can be able to see that the variance, the formulas are somehow related, but if you can be able to see the standard deviation, we just square, we just find the square root of the variance. The moment you find the square root of the variance, that is the standard deviation. In short, we can actually, you can be able to summarize and be able to say that if you want to get the standard deviation, it's actually the square root of the variance. So the answer that we are going to have under the variance, you square root that answer, then you will be able to get the standard deviation. So that's how we get the standard deviation. So the other thing that we need to be able to know, how do you get the coefficient of variation? How can we be able to get the coefficient of variation? Because this is what we have also been asked here. How can we get the coefficient of variation? So for us to be able to get the coefficient of variation, it is always the standard deviation divided by the mean. So that's how we get the coefficient of variation. We are going to have our standard deviation, and then of course we divide by the mean, and then that will be our coefficient of variation. So, and the answer that we get under the coefficient of variation should always start with 0 point something. So we are going to be able to know that when we are going to do this kind of particular practical example here. So now let us start calculating, and we are going to start with the mean. So we want to be able to calculate the mean, and I've said that for us to be able to get the mean, and the mean is x bar, is always summation of fx divided by summation of f. And that's what we have said. It's going to be summation of fx divided by summation of f. And what we are going to do is that we'll be able to extend this step a little bit, so that now we can already we have f. This is our f, which is the frequency. So what we need to have is the midpoint. And remember, the midpoint is our x. And how do we get the midpoint? For us to be able to calculate the midpoint, we are going to take the lower class limit, which is actually 10, plus the upper class limit, which is 20, and then you divide by 2. In the sense that it is going to be 10 plus 20, which is going to be 30, divided by 2, which is going to be 15. So here, the midpoint will be 15. When we come to the second, the class of 20 to 30, if we want to get the midpoint here, it's going to be 20 plus 30, which is 50, divided by 2, which is 25. And then this one, the next one, the class of that to 40 is going to be 30 plus 40, which is 70, divided by 2, which is 35. And then lastly, we are going to have 40 plus 50, which is 90, divided by 2, which is 45. So that's how we arrive at the midpoint, which is in this case our x, which is this x that you can be able to see x here. We have said that x is the midpoint. So the next thing that we are now going to have is fx. You know the formula. This formula is the guiding principle, is the one that guides us to be able to know how to prepare this kind of particular table. So fx is just going to be a such kind of particular symbol, in the sense that we are going to take the f multiplied by x. In the sense that I'm going to take f here in the first class of 10 to 20, which is 3 times 15, which is 45. 10 times 25, which is 250. 1 times 35, which is actually 35. And then 2 times 45, which is 90. So now we have fx. Now let us have a look at this formula once again. The mean, which is x bar, we have said is going to be summation of fx. And summation is just summing them up, adding them up. So we are going to get that sum, and also divided by summation of f here. So the summation of f. That summation of f is the frequency. So we are going to add our frequency, and also we are going to add our fx for us to be able to arrive at the mean. So I will take my calculator here, and then of course add them up. So here we are going to have 420, and then this one is going to be 13, 14, 16. So this one is going to be 16 there. So that is summation of f. And now we can be able to arrive at our mean. by just doing the following. We are going to take 420 divided by 16, which is actually going to give us, let me take my calculator. It will give you 26.25. 26.25, that's what we are actually getting. And that is your x bar. That will be your x bar, which is actually the mean. So that's how simple it is in terms of calculating the mean. So maybe let me round it off to one decimal place. So it's going to be x bar is equals to 26.3. So that when calculating the variance, it can be easy for us. So that is the answer. Our mean is going to be 26.3 rounded off to one decimal place. So the next thing is calculation of the variance. The variance that you can be able to see here. How can we be able to calculate the variance? Remember, we have said that for us to be able to calculate the variance is always equal to summation of x minus x bar squared multiplied by the frequency divided by summation of the frequency, summation of f. So here we are going to multiply by the frequency. I've seen the camera has not captured that, so we'll be able to, that's multiplying by the frequency at the far end there. Let me make it to capture it. Yes. So now it can be seen. So that's how you multiply by the frequency, and then divided by summation of f. So simply that's how we we calculate the variance. And the formula I've said is always the guiding principle. So we are going to have this part of the formula here, whereby we'll be able to extend this table a little bit, and then we will be able to have x minus x bar squared multiplied by f. So I've just picked this part from this bracket to the far end. That's what you bring here. And remember, x bar is your mean. So, and x is actually the midpoint, in the sense that what they mean here, for example, if I want to get the value of this, if I want to get this kind of particular value, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to take x, and x in this case is 15. So it's just, it's going to be 15 minus, if I take x bar, remember x bar is what we rounded off, which is 26.3, which is our mean. And then the answer that I'm going to have here, I should square that answer. And then at the end of the day, that answer is going to be multiplied by the frequency in that class. And the frequency in this class is actually 3. So the frequency there is 3. So multiplied by 3. So in the sense that what I'm going to do is taking 15 minus 26.3. If you do that, you are going to get negative 11.3. And then if I square that answer, I'm going to have 127.69. And then multiplied by 3, I'm going to have 383.1. 383.1, if you round it off, it's going to be 383.1 to one decimal place. So it will be 383.1. So that's the value there. That is our first value that we are having there. And then to the next class of 20 to that, if you want to get the value here, is going to be x, which is actually 25. So it's going to be our 25 minus x bar, which stands to be our mean, which is 26.3, and then of course squared, and then multiplied by the frequency. And the frequency in this class is actually 10. So multiplied by 10. So again, if I take 25 I subtract 26.3. I'm going to have negative 1.3 there, and then multiplied by 10, I mean squared first. So answer squared, I'm going to have 1.69, and then times 10, I'm going to have 16.9. So here we are going to have 16.9. And then the next thing is the class of 30 to 40. So I apply the formula again. We are saying that we are going to take x, and x in this kind of particular case is 35. So it's going to be 35 subtracted by the x bar, which is minus 26.3. The answer is going to be 8.7. I square that answer, I'm going to have 75.69, and then multiplied by the frequency there, which is actually 10, not 10 I mean, which is 1, in this case it's actually 1. And then at the end of the day it will remain the same answer, which is 75.7. 75.7. And then lastly, we have 40, the class of 40 to 50. You take your x, which is 45, subtracted by 26.3, which is actually our mean there. And then if you do that, the answer is going to be 18.7. Squared, it will give you 349.69. And then multiplied by the frequency of that class. The frequency of that class is 2. So multiplied by 2, you are going to have 699.4. 699.4. So remember the way the formula was dictating that we should have summation of x minus x bar squared and then multiplied by the frequency. So what I'm going to do is to sum them up. I'm going to sum this kind of particular values here, in the sense that this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to take 383.1, I add 16.9, and then plus 75.7, and then you add 699.4. So if you sum it up, it's going to give you 1,175.1. So now you have the summation of that one. So we have now the whole of this part of this formula. This is the answer that we are supposed to get. And then of course you have summation of f. You can be able to check. Summation of f is 16. Meaning that now I can be able to calculate variance comfortably. So this is what I will do in terms of calculating the variance. So my variance is going to be summation of x minus x bar squared multiplied by f, which is actually this answer that we have arrived at, which is 1,175.1 divided by summation of f, which is actually 16. So which is 16 here. So at the end of the day, my variance is going to be, so I will take that 1,175.1 and then I divide by 16. At the end of the day, my answer is going to be 73.4. 73.4. So that's my answer in terms of calculating that kind of particular variance, 73.4 there. Rounded it off, I've rounded off to one decimal place. And then the next thing is a calculation of the standard deviation. So remember, we said that for us to be able to calculate the standard deviation, if we want to be able to arrive at the standard deviation, we said is just the square root of variance. So the square root of variance is going to give you the standard deviation. In that case, the variance is 73.4. So it's just the standard deviation here is going to be the square root of 73.4, which at the end of the day is going to give you this kind of particular answer, 8.6. Rounded off to one decimal place, you're going to have 8.6 as your standard deviation. So the next thing that we need to be able to calculate is the coefficient of variation. And for us to be able to calculate the coefficient of variation, we said that if we need to be able to get the coefficient of variation, it's always the standard deviation divided by mean. So it's going to be the standard deviation divided by mean, which in this case is going to be 8.6 divided by the mean, which is 26.3. So you take the 8.6 and then you divide by the mean, which is, so let me make you see that one. So you take 8.6 divided by 26.3, then you have your coefficient of variation, and the answer there is going to be 8.6 divided by 26.3. The coefficient of variation is going to be 0.3. That's your coefficient of variation. So that's how you do those kind of particular calculations in terms of getting the mean, the variance, the standard deviation, the coefficient of variation. So this kind of particular question, you must be careful, because you get it wrong under the mean, it means that everything you are going to get it wrong. So for today, that's what we need to be able to discuss, and we are going to discuss more on that one. We are going to build on that topic in details. So thank you.